starts that triggering of stalking and observing a woman, and he's sexually aroused. He does admit, so, in a lot of the footage from police investigating, they, are talking to him about, how did you get started in this? And, he starts talking about the stalking. Of course, he talks about his mother and about, him fantasizing about her. And then he also reveals that he did try to rape a girl when he was in high school. And he ended up not being able to go through with it. He did, kind of grope her and fondle her and traumatize her, of course. Then ended up leaving, dropping her back off at home and not going through with it. There is another point where in high school he came across a young kid who's playing outside, playing cowboys and Indians. And he comes up to this kid and he says, they kill little boys like you in this area. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if this, I don't know. And he ends up stabbing this kid. And
straight up stabbing him.
Just stabs the kid, just stabs him and walks away laughing. The kid survives. And funny enough, as after Ridgway is all over the news when he's caught, he's living in California. And he calls up and he says, "Hey, I know that guy. Like he stabbed me. I'm the kid he stabbed."
Oh.
And Ridgway had openly admitted that he did this in police investigation. They do talk about it in the documentary.
Yeah.
So the kid ends up having liver damage. He gets home. They get him to the hospital. He has liver damage, but he's okay. And he, goes on to live a normal life, as normal as you can.
Until he sees that picture
again. And can you imagine the post-traumatic stress of seeing, because there was a composite done and Ridgway hasn't changed the way he looked other than aged. There was a composite done in the mid-'80s that really resembled him, I think.
Yeah.
I can imagine if they showed that and the kid's watching, or the guy's watching TV and, he goes back to his 6-year-old brain and thinks, "Oh my God, that guy stabbed me."
Yeah.
PTSD would be horrible, I think.
No.
Yeah. So basically in the documentary, he said, or it's some footage I saw. I don't know that they played it in the documentary, but I did see some other footage where he said he just wanted to see what it felt like to stab somebody.
Don't we all?
Sometimes. Yeah. So Gary finishes high school. It takes him a little while longer because he's, got the issues with learning, and he does have to take repeat a grade. He starts working locally at Kenworth Truck Factory. He ends up working there pretty much his whole life, except for the little bit of time he was in the Navy. So this is during the Vietnam War. He enlists in the Navy.
Yeah.
Before he leaves for the Navy, he does get married to his high school sweetheart. And then pretty much right after that, he is shipped off. He gets stationed in the Philippines.
Great.
It was great. Why is that great?
It's the motherland.
It has nothing to do with your people.
Whatever.
Okay. So it doesn't last long for them. He finds out while he's over there, living it up with all sorts of prostitutes and getting chlamydia and gonorrhea, that his wife back here in Washington has been messing around and cheating on him. So as soon as he gets back, they get divorced in 1972. He gets discharged honorably from the Navy, and he goes back to his job, and that's life. So one of the things that really struck me is that this guy was never alone for very long. So he was pretty much always in a relationship.
Okay.
I mean, don't you think that's weird?
Oh, that's why. Okay. Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, what? He can't be alone, but But none of them turned up dead, though, right?
No. Okay. So nobody that he was dating or married.
It's weird to me how he can separate those two. It's weird.
Well, he does have a hard time. And so, I'll kind of get into that. His first wife, of course, didn't end well. It was very short. So they got married in 70, and by 72, they were divorced.
So the whole time he was in the Navy,
basically they were separated the whole time they were married.
Okay.
Yeah. Then
a paper marriage.
Basically.
Okay.
He gets married again in 1973.
That was quick.
Yeah. He gets married, and then 2 years later, they have a son. And
wow.
he really wants, I mean, this guy's just seeking approval. He's seeking somebody to love him unconditionally, not give him any hard time.
Yeah.
He just wants love.
Yeah.
And he can't make it work with this second wife either.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I found odd too is his mom during this time has control of his finances.
The whole time?
Right.
Wow.
So he's married in Vietnam. He doesn't have any control over his finances. His wife doesn't have any control. The mom does. And she would give them money as they needed it. Wow. And what does he need? He's overseas. I don't know how that works. Do you need money? Would he have needed money? Or would, the Navy have provided everything he needed?
You need some. I mean, it depends if you're at base or if you're out to sea. I mean, if you're out to sea, yeah, they probably provide it for you. But if you're on base, I mean, you just have to buy your own basic necessities,
So, I mean, at some point he was on base because that's where the prostitutes were, like where he was finding them in the Philippines. So he would have ventured outside base. So you need cash.
Yeah.
So somehow he got it then.
Basic necessity, right?
Right. I guess. Mm. He lets that continue with his second marriage. And I think she had a really hard time with that. Mm-hmm. I think I would too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So his mom, was in control. And I can't imagine as a grown woman, my mother-in-law having control of the finances that, we're earning.
Yeah.
And I'm taking care of a child as well.
Yeah.
What do you have to do with it?
Maybe she's an excellent financial advisor. I don't know.
Well, I didn't hear that she had some degree in accounting, so I doubt that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that she needs to have anything to do with their money.
Yeah.
So from there, okay. It's a hang up for me, I guess. Give me my money. So
okay, Pearl.
He actually ends up, thinking that the marriage is not going well, and he actually does have some thoughts about murdering his second wife. Mm-hmm. And he probably would have, because he didn't want to get divorced, and he didn't want to be labeled a loser because he couldn't make now 2 marriages work.
Yeah.
So his answer was, I should just kill her.
That's logical.
Sometimes. That's something that you might think.
Well,
if you are a serial killer.
Maybe.
He doesn't do it, basically, because it pretty much everybody knows that it's a rocky marriage. Mm-hmm. So he has enough presence of mind to realize that if he were to kill her, he probably would have been looked at.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to be looked at. He just wants to engage in sex with sex workers and go about living his best life.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to get divorced, but that's what ended up happening. About this time, too, he becomes kind of a religious fanatic, and he starts going door to door. He would read his Bible aloud at work and other places where he was, and he kind of forced his wife to follow like their strict rules that the pastor had set forth as an example.
This is still the second wife.
This is still the second wife. Okay. I think she probably got tired of that, too. Mm-hmm. Just because it seemed like some of the stuff was weird and conflicting. Mm-hmm. Your role at home is this, and you're going to be the homemaker, and you're going to raise the children, and I only want you to focus on things that have to do with the household. But then when we're in public, I want you to give me a blowjob in this park.
What?
He was big into open area sex.
Public.
Yeah. Public sex.
Maybe it's the thrill of getting caught.
Maybe. I'm sure that's it. Mm. So to me, I don't know how I would feel about that, but you're just not going to tell me what I can and can't do. I know it's the 70s and the 80s, but I try to think about how these women would perceive some of the things that he expected.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't go along with it. I'm sure some women in that age and time could. Not me. But, teach his own. So she pretty much had it. And then that's when the killings start. So during 1982 and 84, they divorced, I believe, in 81. Mm-hmm. And then the killings start in 82. He does comment quite often that if he had been in a good relationship or had the love of a woman to come home to, mm-hmm. that he probably wouldn't have killed people.
Okay.
Right. He kind of goes on to say that. So in 82, they started finding victims near the Green River. And the first one was found in July mm-hmm. of 1982. That's Wendy Caulfield. She was 16 years old.
Wow. And she was a sex worker?
She was a runaway sex worker.
Oh, man.
Every one of his victims would be a sex worker of some sort. Most of them were runaways. Some of them, they were just trying to make ends meet. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of cases like that. Documentary goes into some specifics about a few of his victims. For, our purposes here, I won't go into a whole lot of specifics about all of them, mm-hmm. but if you get a chance, and if you're interested enough, there's the prosecutor's summary report, and that's actually where I got a good chunk of my initial information. Mm-hmm. It's available on Google if you search it. And it's basically every charge that they end up charging him with. And it summarizes everything.
How thick is that book?
I think it was 17 or 18 pages.
That's it?
Yeah, it had enough information, but it was loaded.
Oh.
Yeah. There's also some other odds and ends with it. There's a detailed map of where they found some of these bodies that is linked to it. That has the date they went missing and the date they were found. So that's really, you can look at the areas where he was going and kind of, look at the timeline. Mm-hmm. So after Wendy, they find 4 more bodies in or around the Green River in that same area. And at one point, they're investigating one crime scene and come across another body.
Holy shit.
This is within a 2-month period.
Oh, I was going to ask, yeah. I mean, was it like a 6-month, a year, and how far apart were they? Does that report say how far? Jesus Christ.
Where the bodies were in relation to each other? You can get into detail with the summary report, with the prosecutor's summary report. Mm-hmm. The map just shows where the clusters were.
Okay.
But yeah, they found 2 pretty much right on top of each other. One was in the river, and I think one was on the bank of the river.
He didn't even bury him? They were just...
Not those ones.
Okay.
No. He does, at some point, start burying bodies. Yeah. So those first ones, they collect DNA and paint samples from some of those victims. Mm-hmm. Wendy has paint samples on her, so she's victim number 1. Mm-hmm. Then there was a body... Really, and I debated whether even to say this, but they say it in the documentary, so I don't feel so bad now. I had read it, but I didn't want to mention it before. So now they find DNA. Mm-hmm. Basically, it's so well preserved in the body because after he sexually assaulted them, mm-hmm. he put rocks in the vagina of these victims.
Why?
I think I don't even want to hazard to guess.
Oh, okay. He didn't explain or
No, okay. He didn't explain. Nothing that I saw explained it.
Okay. Well, that's just weird. But so is murdering sex workers, but
yeah. If I had to guess, I would say because one of 2 reasons. Either he was trying to bury them so that they would sink to the bottom of the river, or
in their vagina.
Whatever.
He didn't graduate till he was 20, but okay.
I don't know. Yeah,